Hello. Today we're going to be looking at the best sleeping meds. And as you can tell, I don't have most of them here. Because the ones we're going to be talking about today are the good ones. The ones you need a prescription for. Well, some of them. Actually, most of them. There's a couple over-the-counter meds that made the list, and I'm excited to talk about those as well. But there's actually a lot of different options for sleep. And a lot of people don't know this because doctors do not like to give this stuff out. And for a really good reason. I can promise you, as a medication expert, you are way better off being very, very tired than using some of these medications. Some of them will literally ruin your life. Not really. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not a whole lot, honestly. Some of them will ruin your life for a brief period of time until you figure out how bad it is, and then you'd rather go back to not sleeping. Some of you are probably saying, "Oh, that sounds pretty good right about now." Trust me, it's not. Now, what we're going to talk about is okay, I shouldn't say the best. Let me take that back. The most sedating medications. I'll make comments about which ones I think are good and which ones I think are bad as we go through the list, but we're going to be talking about, we're going in order from least sedating. In fact, number one on the list is not sedating at all. It's actually like the worst. I don't even know why it exists anymore, honestly. And then the other one on the other end of the spectrum is so sedating that like you cannot stay asleep. Like, not even if you try. I mean, you can if you try, but... So, what I wanted to start with was just a brief comment about how just because something makes you tired does not mean it's a good medication. So when we talk about, like, sleeping medications, ideally we would have something that knocks you out quickly, helps you stay asleep, is not habit forming, and when you wake up, you feel refreshed, okay? Such a medication does not exist. You have to weigh different aspects of these ratios. So, like, I guess it kind of depends on if you're having trouble falling asleep versus staying asleep, okay? If you need to feel more rested when you wake up, all these things kind of guide the decision. But for today, we're talking about the ones that will, quite frankly, zonk you out of your nuggets. We're moving up in zonkification, okay? So, like, super zonkers are going to be the ones we talk about at the end. But first, we have to get the ones that I hate the most. Number one on the list, the least zonky, if that's a word. Oh, by the way, we're going in medication class. Because quite frankly, whenever you look at a class of medication, or when we're talking about sleep, the differences between the actual chemicals themselves is not really that significant. The class of medication is what's important. I have seen, different chemicals within the same class have what I'll call like random little tidbits to them. And most of the time it's not relevant, but sometimes it is. Some people may respond to one chemical in one class and not another chemical in the other class. But for the most part, if you try one thing in one class and you don't like it, it doesn't fit your needs, you probably need to move on to another class. So anyway, number one, the worst. I will actually call this the worst. This is the worst, and it's also the least sedating, the least zonky. I don't know why this is even on the market anymore. Whenever I worked at Rite Aid as a Rite Aid pharmacist, I don't know if I ever saw this even once. I don't think I did. And maybe once. Okay. But I have seen this regardless because I have taken this one personally. Also, that reminds me, I started to make a Google Doc, Google Sheet or whatever, with all of the meds I've ever taken and how what my reaction was to it, how it felt, and how I would rank them. But I kind of stopped because I realized I've tried a lot. Like, I have tried many, many medications. And the other thing was, I wanted to put it on my website, grantharting.com, but it wouldn't embed the way I wanted it to, and I just didn't really care enough to figure it out. I'm not going to put a PDF, or not a PDF, I'm not going to put an Excel doc up there and make you guys download it. That's, stupid. Anyway, let's talk about it. Number one, place your guesses now. None of you are going to guess. I don't even know why I'm asking. These are called the orexin inhibitors. Okay. Now, orexin is a relatively new receptor that we have been attacking in the medical community. Well, I can't really say that anymore. It was new when I was in school. Newish. So, that was a while ago, so not really that new anymore. But the main medication in here, in these orexin inhibitors, is called Belsomra. And I think that has the coolest name ever. Belsomra? Dang, dude. That sounds like it's gonna put me asleep until next week. It did not. The chemical name is suvorexant. By the way, I have to take a moment to talk about this. There is no such thing as a brand. Okay, I hate that term. I wish we would get rid of it as the medical community. But that is a fight I have already lost. Technically, Belsomra is the innovator. That's the innovator product. Suvorexant is the chemical name. Okay? Once this goes off patent in a couple years, then the competitor products, which is what everyone calls a generic, will come onto the market. So I hate the term branded generic. Those are billing terms, okay? Those exist only for reimbursement to pharmacies. The insurance companies, the PBMs, they use brand and generics to determine pricing. It has nothing to do with clinical efficacy. It never has. There is absolutely no reason why someone would need a brand medically necessary. Yet somehow that has infiltrated our laws in the medical and pharmacy world. Doctors can write on there brand medically necessary, and I just scoff at it. I was like, that makes no sense. Obviously you don't know what you're doing. There's no such thing as brand medically necessary. So there's the competitor product and the innovator product. Now, before you all attack me, yes, there's inactive ingredients that do matter sometimes. If somebody has an allergy to I don't know. That hardly ever, honestly, I don't even think it ever even does happen. I don't know. Maybe they could have a allergic reaction to the Belsomra pill. That it might be a red pill. It's not. It's white. But bear with me here. Maybe it's red. And maybe the person is allergic to red. I don't know. Let's say the competitor product from Teva comes onto the scene. And let's say it's blue. Okay, so it's very possible, very rare. I don't think I've really ever seen it. But it's possible for someone to have an allergy to, let's say, the blue. They're allergic to the blue. Okay, well then it makes sense to say brand medically necessary. But it's not the fact that it's a brand that's medically necessary. It's the fact that it doesn't have red in it. So Mylan may have may also make a red pill. So they could have both of these. So the brand is not medically necessary. Mylan is fine. Mylan would be fine in this scenario. But that's a fight I think I will never win. So I just conform. So I use the term. I've given up hope. I use the terms brand and generic as well. And if you're curious what I was talking about earlier, whenever I said that brand and generic are billing terms, I don't know like off the top of my head here, but insurance companies will reimburse pharmacies based on a mathematical formula, and I don't remember what it is exactly, but they use one formula for brand and they use a different formula for generic. Okay, so that actually does make sense. They have to use two different formulas because a brand is what, like, I don't even know. I don't know. Let's say a brand is like 10 times more expensive than a generic. Okay. If you use the same, like if you just paid them like 10% of the brand price, well, the brand might be $1,000, so you're paying the pharmacy $100. The generic may be only $100, so if you took 10% of $100, you'd be only paying the pharmacy $10. That's unfair. It sounds like they're being nice to the pharmacy. They're not. It's probably reversed there a little bit. Yeah, so you guys get how that works. Anyway, Belsomra or Suvorexant. I have taken this medication. Now, the story of how and why I took it is hilarious. So, for those of you who don't know, I have another channel where I literally take medications and I film myself and I talk about how they feel and educate people on it. That's nothing new for me. When I was in college, I had a presentation due about Belsomra. So I went out and got a prescription for it. Can you imagine the dedication a student must have to say, I want to have a good presentation, so I'm going to go out and get a prescription to try the medication? That actually happened. And guess who got an F on their presentation? Not me, because I was goated whenever it came to this was actually medicinal chemistry, was the course I was doing this for. I actually kind of got in trouble a little bit when I did that because I took a picture of the prescription that I got and I put it in my presentation. And my professor did not like that. He was like, that breaks HIPAA. It didn't, but HIPAA's not really anything to mess around with, honestly. So he did not like that very much. But that happened, and I can tell you Not only did I not sleep, I stayed up all night long whenever I took this. It was horrendous. Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe it. I took that bottle and I threw it away. This is a trash drug, and I never want to see it again. Thankfully I won't, because I rarely ever see this. Rarely. That is the loudest airplane that has ever existed. Now, if that wasn't dumb enough, there's actually a new version of these orexin inhibitors called, the chemical name is daridorexant. And I'm going to be honest, I've never even heard of this until I started making this presentation. And the brand name for this is even stupider. It's Quivic. It doesn't even make sense. It's Quivivq. Unbelievable stupidity. You know what? Let's see how much that costs. I bet it's really expensive. Here, pull up the old Crush Cost app. Let's see, look. Quiv. Oh, it's not even on there. I wouldn't be surprised if they took it off the market then, because I'd never heard of this. Okay, well, let's look up Balsamra, because I know that one's pretty expensive. Yeah, that's not too bad. Well, that's only for 10 tablets. So you're talking like $400 or $500 a month if you take this every night? Get out of here, man. I think that's way too much. So that, Quivivq. What is this? Wow. So apparently it is still on the market. Unbelievable. Yeah, I can't even get a price for that one. Typically that means it's very expensive. Okay, so I'm not a fan of this class of medication. There's still some good ones left though. So this is the only one that it does nothing. Like, I don't think there's any utility for this at all based on my personal experience. I'd like to know if anybody else here has used either Balsamra or Quivic, however the heck you say that. The next thing we have to look at. So this is where we start to actually see some effect here. The melatonin agonists. Okay. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, the term agonist means it mimics a chemical in the body, basically. So like you have a receptor here, and then the naturally occurring molecule in the human body attaches to it, and then this effect happens. So normally what happens is like, I don't know, we'll talk about this later, but like these GABA receptors, if something binds to it, it'll secrete, or I guess open up and allow neurotransmitters to kind of come through and do stuff. It creates a change in the receptor, one that potentiates the effect. Okay, think like testosterone. Testosterone in men will bind to receptors, and it will cause like cell growth and like muscle growth and all this stuff. And there are testosterone agonists like nandrolone Nandrolone does not exist in the body, but it whenever you inject it, it goes and does a similar or same thing as the testosterone. It's an agonist. Okay? An antagonist does the opposite. It'll bind to the receptor and it'll stop it. Typically, it'll just kind of shut the receptor off. So typically you get the exact opposite effect. So a melatonin agonist, it binds to melatonin receptors and it tells your body, all right, it's time to go to bed. It's amazing, how the human body works. So your body will actually secrete melatonin from the pineal gland. And there's also melatonin is actually secreted in other organs in the body as well. And melatonin is a hormone, which means that a hormone is something that is secreted in one part of the body and has its action in another part of the body. So this would be melatonin. And melatonin swims through your bloodstream and eventually finds the melatonin receptors. And then whenever enough of these receptors get activated, your body's like, okay, bud, it's time to go to bed. And this whole process is activated by darkness, which means you should not have screen time going on, by the way. How many of you are watching this on full brightness? Bad. Very bad. So, first thing we can do is take actual melatonin. I mean, you can buy that without a prescription in the United States. 5 milligram, no more than 5 milligram right before you go to bed. And that sort of tricks your body into thinking it's time to go to bed. A lot of people are quick to point out that if you take exogenous melatonin, meaning you take a pill, that it'll decrease your endogenous production, meaning your body will stop making it. And they are wrong. That is not true. You can take melatonin pills and your body does not stop or diminish its own production of melatonin. Logical to think that, but the science has shown that that is not the case. Now here's the thing with melatonin. Taking melatonin pills, it's not really that sedating, honestly. It takes about a week to work, and you really can't feel it. It's not like you take the pill and it's like, oh man, I'm so tired. No, it's more like you take it and it's like, man, I really want to go to bed. But you have to take it 30 minutes. I've seen also an hour before you want to go to bed. But you have to be consistent. If you take it once, you're not going to feel anything. It's not going to be any different at all. You have to take it for like a week. Now, that works so well, it doesn't. But it does work. It works so well that we, as chemists, we want to find other ways to promote sleep through this receptor. So we have man-made chemicals that mimic melatonin. One of them is called Rameltion. Okay. The brand name is Rosarim, and this is a melatonin agonist. You take this pill, and it's different from the actual melatonin molecule, but it binds to the same receptor. I've never taken this. I don't really know anyone who has. I don't think I've ever seen this either as a pharmacist. I would be very interested to know if anybody has any personal experience with this. I wouldn't be afraid to try it. I'd actually like to. We have another melatonin agonist, and this one's kind of a scam. It's called Tazimeltion. Okay. Similar sounding chemical. The brand name is Hetlios. And this is like $45,000 a month or something like that. I don't think it's that much, but it's like tens of thousands of dollars, I think. It's a scam. I would be embarrassed to prescribe that medication, honestly. If I would never let anybody know if I ever prescribed that for that price. Unbelievable. Now, it's for a niche kind of thing, this non-24-hour awake disorder. It's for people who can't see. But the chemical's nothing special. Not worth 12 grand a month or whatever it is. I remember I used to see commercials for this, like when I was a young lad, Het Leo's. And I was like, wow, that is way too niche to be putting on TV. But they did it anyway, these pharmaceutical companies. Alright, third on the list is the antihistamines. So we want first generation, which is diphenhydramine and doxylamine. There's also pyrilamine. I've tried pyrilamine before. These antihistamines, these first generations, they have pretty strong anticholinergic effects, which cause drowsiness. And people get all excited about the blood-brain barrier. It's like, oh, does it cross the blood-brain barrier? Does it not cross the blood-brain barrier? Probably. Man, what is going on at the airport tonight? It's like rush hour. It's rush hour at the airport. Sheesh. Okay. Anyway, yeah, people get all excited about that. I don't really care if something crosses the blood-brain barrier, honestly. I could really care less. Does it do what it's supposed to do? Does it make you sleepy? Does it have drowsiness when you wake up? That's the important stuff. But yes, some of them do. They cross the blood-brain barrier. They also interact with the H1 receptor, which, depending on who you ask, is relevant for sleeping. Most people say the anticholinergic effect is the most important part, though, of these first-generation antihistamines. But people often ask about dementia. I think I've done like 1 million videos on this. From what I can tell, the first-generation antihistamines have a very, very tiny increased risk for dementia. It's tiny. It is statistically insignificant. But it's up to you and your doctor to decide if it's clinically significant. The benefits may outweigh the risks. The Lord only knows. These are a little bit more sedating than the melatonin. So like if you take a melatonin, you're really never going to feel anything, honestly. But you'll feel, if you take a first generation antihistamine, you'll feel it. You'll feel drowsy. Not really good, especially long term. But it does work. Like it does make you drowsy. Okay, next on the list, we're increasing in sedative effect. Antidepressants. Yep. The old antidepressants, ones that I don't even, rarely ever do doctors use these old antidepressants for depression anymore. It's almost exclusively for sleep nowadays. And there is a bunch of them. We cannot go through all of them, my goodness. But some of the more relevant ones is trazodone, which is the brand name Desiril. I actually have some of those here. This is a trazodone pill. I have taken this, obviously. That's why I have it. And this is kind of a weird little guy. Trazodone, I would say, is probably one of the better ones for sleep. it has several mechanisms. Like, there's like some serotonin receptor going on there, some H1, that's histamine, some alpha antagonism. There's a lot going on there, and it does make you pretty drowsy. But here's the thing. I have taken this. It does help at times, but it really hurts my tum-tum. It really does. In fact, it hurts so much that I pretty much won't take this anymore unless I'm eating right before I go to bed. And I try to take this, so melatonin, I said you don't take it as you're going to bed. I said that in another video. Melatonin, take 30 minutes to an hour before you go to bed. Trazodone, you take that puppy like right as you're going to bed. Because if you're awake, it's going to hurt your tum-tum. So that's how I negotiate that. Next, we got the tricyclic antidepressants. There's a bajillion of them. Amitriptyline, brand name is Elavil. Nortriptyline, brand name is Pamelor. Desipramine, brand name is Norpramine. These guys, they're sedating. I've never taken any of them. But don't make you tired, you know. Kind of similar to the trazodone, but they're more like a traditional tricyclic antidepressant. Definitely less habit forming than like some of these other ones we'll see here soon. I would say it's worth a shot. Mirtazapine, brand name is Remeron. This is another weird little guy. It's an antidepressant, but it works at the serotonin receptor, H1 receptor. I like this one. But here's something very, very weird. It comes in a 7.5 milligram, 15 milligram, 30 and 45 milligram tablet. Which one of those do you think is the most expensive? 7.5. It's 4 times more expensive than the other doses. So, a prudent prescriber would prescribe only the 15 milligram tablets and tell the patient to split them in half to get the 7.5 milligram dose if that's what's intended, which it very well could be for sleep. That is a cost savings intervention. I'm chock full of them. Pretty soon my company, Crush Cost, will be helping people save money through those little tricks. 4 times more expensive. And that adds up. I mean, we're talking millions of prescriptions a year in the United States. I'm a big fan of mirtazapine. I see it used quite often, honestly. Very, very common medication. Okay, we're done with that class. I don't want to spend much more time on that because we're getting to the goods now. Next on the class, or next on the scale. Now remember, we're going in most sedating. Benzodiazepines. There, I said it. Now, benzodiazepines work at the GABA receptor. And it's very difficult to understand how they actually work because the next 2 classes are very similar. They all work at the GABA receptor, but in a different way. So how I can kind of describe these benzodiazepines is whenever they bind to the GABA receptor, they kind of like open it a little bit, you know. They activate it. More inhibitory neurons are coming through now. We got more inhibition going on once these receptors are activated. So that's what makes you sleepy. It kind of like slows down the brain, kind of. So we have lorazepam, brand name Ativan, temazepam, Restoril, clonazepam, brand name Klonopin, Zaloplan, brand name Sonata. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, I could spend another 18 hours on these. Number one in this class, I'd probably go with lorazepam for sleep. Very dose dependent. I mean, you can be anywhere from like 0.5 milligram all the way up to 2 milligram. Oh, there's also Xanax. I didn't mention Xanax. Alprazolam, which is the chemical name. Xanax is the brand name. There's not a whole lot of difference between any of these, really. If you dose it correctly. So I'm a big fan of lorazepam. Temazepam's a good one. Here's an interesting one about temazepam. It comes in a 7.5 milligram capsule or 15 milligram capsule. I believe there's also a 30 as well. 7.5 milligram, it's like five times more expensive than the 15. And what do? You can't split it's a capsule, it's not a tablet. You can't split that. You can't do a 15 milligram capsule and like weigh it out. You know, that's impractical for people to do. So for that reason and that reason only, I tend to stay away from Restoril, or temazepam is the chemical name. Clonazepam, alprazolam, those are similar to lorazepam. They last a bit longer. You know? Nothing crazy going on there. By the way, Zaloplan or Sonata, I think Sonata is the coolest name for a sleeping medication. Trash boat. I have taken Sonata, it is trash boat. You have to take so much of that to feel an effect. I don't like it. Now these benzodiazepines, this is where the famous roofies, those would be a benzodiazepine. Rufinol. That's a benzodiazepine. I kind of forgot how to pronounce that. I haven't watched The Hangover recently. Okay, those are quite sedating. They will ruin your life. They'll ruin it. Very habit forming. I would say stay away from that for the most part. Now, the next one, we got the Barbs. Nicki Minaj Barbs. And that stands for barbiturates. Now we're moving up in sedation. Actually, you know what? The benzos and the barbs are about equal. It's tough to really say, honestly. But the barbiturates, these are kind of weird because barbiturates, they bind, same receptor, they bind to the GABA receptor and they hold it open for a while, basically. And there's two important ones here. Phenobarbital, brand name is Luminol, and secobarbital, brand name is Seconal. The guy who thought of that name wasn't the most creative. Now this is the same thing. It's kind of activating that inhibition of the brain. But these are weird, okay? Because technically, efficacy has not been shown in the barbiturates because they are very, very old. They're so old that it was before you had to show efficacy. Or you had to show, was it safety or efficacy? I don't know. I forget exactly, but they're so old. And there's kind of like there's weird things about them. These old meds. So like for one, the phenobarbital, it comes in like a 97.2 milligram tablet. Because it had to do with like things being measured in old apothecary units, being measured in grains. It's really weird. So, they kind of got grandfathered into modern day medicine. Next on the list, the most sedating. Okay. Things that will put you to sleep in the middle of the day. They're what I will call the Z drugs. They're non-benzodiazepine sedative hypnotics. And they work at the same receptor, but there's something called an allosteric modulator. It means it actually doesn't bind to the receptor itself. It binds like to the side of it. And then it, like once it binds there, then it kind of opens up. Kind of a weird little thing there. But these are Ambien. Okay, everybody's heard of Ambien. Great name. And Lunesta. Also a great name. Ambien, the active ingredient is called zopiclone. And then Lunesta is S-zopiclone. Now, these will ruin your life. Very, very habit forming. The sleep is not really refreshing. If you take this, you're going to wake up tired. Alright? 8 hours of Ambien sleep is the equivalent of about 6 hours of regular sleep. It's weird. But you'll be asleep, buddy. I'll tell you that much. Now, I have taken both of these. Ambien ruined my life. Not really. But, like, I'm serious. Like, if you take this for a while, you won't be able to sleep without it. But if you take it, you won't feel refreshed during your sleep anyway. So it's like, it's not a fun time, really. Lunesta, I've also taken. Lunesta, if I recall, lasts a bit longer. But man, it's not a good feeling to have this in your system that long. One of the weird things, this is so weird, with Lunesta, there's a weird taste that it puts in your mouth. It's almost kind of like metallic, but not quite. The Lunesta taste, it's not a good taste. It doesn't taste good. But what's really weird is you take the pill, you feel the weird taste, and then you fall asleep. Okay, in that order. And what happens is it becomes an acquired taste, almost like kind of like a Pavlov thing. It's so weird. The first time you take Lunesta, you were like, "Whoa, that's disgusting. I'm never going to take that again." By about the 7th night, you're going to be craving that taste. Isn't that the weirdest thing? It's such an odd thing. Such an odd thing. Now, those will ruin your life. They'll put you to sleep. What's the most sedating? Well, it's things that we use to actually put you to sleep for surgery, though. You know, like an actual infusion. Propofol. Okay, good night. You know, that's a coma. You're being put into a coma at that point. Okay? So I kind of left those off the list because they're not really for sleep, you know. But there we go. Now, which one of those is the best? Honestly, the tricyclic antidepressants, you know, the trazodone, the amitriptyline, the mirtazapine, those have the best ratio of sleepiness to ruin your lifeiness. You know what I mean? Those are probably the best. the heavy stuff, just because it's a real heavy hitter, does not mean it's a good med.